Should you be doing water changes? Should I be doing water changes? Does anybody really need to do water changes? We live in a polarized world these days. Everything is black or white, all or nothing, and water changes are no exception. You got people who don't believe in water changes at all and think you're ignorant if you're doing them. You got people that believe you need to do 70% water changes for the first month every day when you set up a new tank. So in today's video, I'm going to break down this topic and give you a definitive answer on water changes. How can you look at your tank, run a test, and decide, yeah, I need to do a water change, or say, hey, it's fine, I'm going to leave it. Let's get going. First thing I'm going to do is break down the advantages and disadvantages of doing water changes. So let's start with the advantages. So the first thing is that water changes remove unwanted toxic chemicals from the aquarium. These chemicals can range from a number of different things. Mainly we think about nitrates and phosphates resulting from fish waste, but it's really not limited to that, or even to chemicals that we can test in the aquarium water. So water changes are good for removing things we know about and perhaps things we don't even know about. Number two, fish respond well to water changes. It's hard to ask a fish whether or not they enjoy the process of a water change. They don't enjoy you digging your hands around the tank and all that stuff, but they do really seem to enjoy the part where new water enters the tank. They're always swimming up in the current. They get all sorts of frisky, and it can even trigger breeding in some species of fish. Reason number three, algae responds poorly to water changes. I don't know what the exact reason is. I suppose part of it is that there's clean water and algae likes dirty water. Some municipalities add CO2 or carbon dioxide to tap water, and that can give your plants a boost and also punch algae in the face. 4, it's a chance to remove organic waste, also known as fish. 5, it's an opportunity to replenish minerals in the tank. If you live somewhere with really soft tap water, then your plants or shrimp could be using that calcium and magnesium as a way to build plant matter or exoskeletons, and it can easily become depleted. So adding fresh tap water in there is a way to replenish those supplies. Number 6 is kind of a bit of a hippie answer, but it's truthfully how I feel. And I do think that even though it's anecdotal, you can't quite measure the significance of this. Getting into your tank to clean gives you a chance to get in touch with your tank, to see how your plants are doing, your fish are doing. When you slosh water around, you see where are the spots where waste is building up. What are these problem areas? What are areas that are doing well? How can you transfer the good areas to the bad areas? It's a good idea to get in there, get your hands dirty. I love playing in my tank. It's kind of a relaxing process for me. But I understand, hey, that's not for everyone. So let's look at some of the disadvantages to doing water changes. Water is a valuable natural resource, and it shouldn't really be wasted. So if you're doing an excessive amount of water changes on a tank that doesn't really need them, then what's the point? You're just wasting water. This is my new kitty, Athena, by the way. She's a new member to the house. So 3 cats, 2 dogs, tons of fish. So if your problems lie with wasting water, there are a few different things you can do with that water. 1, you can dump it on your garden if you grow any fruits or vegetables or flowers or anything. Even if you don't, you can just dump your water outside on a tree. You can also use water to flush your toilet. So if you have a water shortage in your area, they'll say that you should use any wastewater to flush your toilet. That would be a great example. And then the last thing you can do, if you have a compost pile, water is really good to help the composting microbes get going. So dump it on your pile every now and then. Number 2, the other disadvantage to doing water changes is that it's time consuming and energy consuming. If you like to sit on your couch, getting up and doing a water change is not sitting on the couch. Fortunately, you can get a faucet adapter, which makes cleaning out aquariums really easy. You will have to get up to hook it into your faucet and set it in your tank, but when it's draining and filling, you can sit on your couch and watch that happen. All right, so what's the answer? If you want one single answer about do you need to do water changes, I got it for you. It really depends on the fish you have. Every fish has a certain level that they can tolerate with regards to whatever chemical. So I have an indicator chemical that I use in my tanks to tell me when it's time for a water change. Those are nitrates. Nitrates are a pretty common one because they relate to the waste that fish are producing. So I will look at nitrates with respect to a specific species of fish. So, maybe like a danio has a pretty high threshold for nitrates that they can tolerate compared to a discus. Discus have really low threshold. So you can go online and do a little bit of research, figure out what levels of nitrates are safe for your fish, and then make sure that your tank reaches those nitrates. Stick around to the end of the video and I'll create a little table that go over some of the more common fish found in planted aquariums and then a few other common freshwater fish so that you can get an idea for what's safe for your tank. So I've had a few people lately leave comments on my channel saying like, hey, if you're doing water changes, you're doing it wrong. And I would like to say, those people are definitely wrong. I think this growing trend is largely because, well, for one, people are lazy, and when they see someone with 100,000 views validating their laziness, then okay, great. I'm going to click that. It makes me feel good about not doing anything for my fish tank. Lovely. Well, truth of the matter is there are actually aquariums where it's fine to do that. Ecosystem aquariums, where the levels of nutrients can be safely absorbed by the ecosystem of that tank. Truth of the matter is most tanks are not like that. As a professional who cleans aquariums, I can tell you that people who don't clean tanks, like this one here, I go in like 3 times a year, the nitrates are through the roof. I can't even measure them. It's not safe for the fish. I don't even know how the fish are alive, and it's not fun to look at. So what makes a low maintenance tank? Often called ecosystem tanks because they don't require an external input of us doing water changes at all, or at least very often, in order to keep a healthy system going for your fish. The theory behind this is that decomposers and beneficial bacteria break down fish waste from a harmful compound to a less harmful compound called nitrates that plants can use as their preferred fertilizer so that they can grow and put oxygen back into the water as they grow, which helps the fish metabolism keep going so they can keep churning out turds so that the plants can keep growing. Like an ecosystem, everything feeds off each other and the system continues to balance itself out. Pretty cool system when you think about it, right? What's happening is the aquarium is essentially recycling all the nutrients in there. Catch is you can't go stocking your tank like crazy, so the plants need to be able to accommodate the waste load. If you throw in really big fish or messy fish like goldfish, which check both those boxes, then your plants aren't going to be able to consume the waste, and the waste will gradually build up, leading to unsafe levels for your fish. So keeping really small fish with fast-growing plants like stem plants and floating plants are a great way to balance each other out. So if this sounds like something that you'd enjoy, then great. Maybe ecosystem tank is the right tank for you. If you enjoy only having a few fish darting around in some dense jungly plants, perfect. Truthfully, that's not the case for most people. As a professional aquarium cleaner, I know that most people like to really stock their tanks with big showy fish. And so that's okay. They are called fish tanks for a reason, right? We want to look at our fish. All right, so I just said it. Low maintenance tanks aren't for everybody. You want to keep big fish or you want to keep fish that eat plants, then you can't have an ecosystem tank and you're going to need to do water changes. Let's look at some examples of when that might be. One, tanks with really large fish, like severums or some large goldfish, or even like extreme monsters like arowanas. Tanks like that, there's just really no way for plants to keep up with how much waste is being produced. You're going to need to do water changes. Two, tanks that can't have live plants. There are a lot of herbivorous fish out there, or just fish that like to destroy plants, like silver dollars or African cichlids, and you can't keep live plants in those tanks. So, gonna need to do water changes. Three, really sensitive fish. So, fish like discus or elephant nose require super specific water parameters. Not a smart idea to forego water changes on tanks like that. Four, breeding tanks. Breeding tanks need to have really clean water. Also, adding in some slightly cooler water can simulate a monsoonal rainstorm, which triggers breeding in a lot of fish. So water changes have more benefits to just cleaning the water. And then five, last but not least, are high-tech planted tanks. I love both low maintenance and high maintenance tanks. High-tech planted tanks are like little underwater gardens. So much fun. But the idea is that you dump a lot of fertilizers in there throughout the week to give the plants all the nutrition they need. Then at the end of the week, you go through, do a huge water change, and kind of reset things. That prevents the water parameters from rising to a level that's unsafe for the fish. Other situations. So there are other situations where you could use chemicals to alleviate some of the symptoms that water changes would also take care of. I tend to go for water changes over chemicals, but But just to give you an example, here are a couple of them. pH. If you live somewhere with really low mineral content in the tap water, then it's easy for those to get depleted in the water column. As plants grow and invertebrates grow, they take in those minerals, calcium and magnesium, to put on plant mass or exoskeleton material, and that can deplete your water column of minerals, which leads to unstable pH. So adding in tap water or doing the water changes will help to remineralize your water. Another way around that is you could just add, buffers and stuff, pH up, pH down. Or maybe on the other hand, your tank is stacked full of limestone and it's causing the minerals to shoot through the roof. It would be kind of hard to get rid of those without doing water changes. Even though you could alter the pH, it wouldn't really work for long. And then the last example would be like having tannins in the water where you just put some leaves or a new chunk of wood in a tank and it's kind of brown. I know that most of my clients really freak out about that. They think the water's dirty or they don't like looking at it. It's bad for the fish. It's not bad for the fish, but if you don't like it, easiest way to get rid of it is through water changes, or you could add some sort of matrix into your tank, your filter, to absorb it. The table. All right, let's go through this table here. I'll walk you through the different levels that each fish can take. Just keep in mind that I went online and looked up these values from a bunch of different sources, so there could be a little bit of wiggle room. But when in doubt, play it safe. Why make your fish live in poop water when they don't have to? If you flush the toilet after dropping a deuce, why not pass on that same courtesy to your fish? All right, so here's that table. On the left, we have the hardy fish. They're easy to keep. They can tolerate levels of nitrates up to 40 parts per million or higher. In the middle are fish that can tolerate between 20 to 30 parts per million nitrates. And then the sensitive or difficult advanced level fish or shrimp are on the right, and they need between 10 or 5 parts per million nitrates in order to stay healthy. How much water to change? I generally do 50% water changes, and then it's just a matter of how often I do those water changes. But that number can depend on the type of fish you have. Really sensitive ones do better with more frequent but less volume of water changes. So like, doing a 10% 2 or 3 times a week versus a 50% twice a month, something like that. It's really up to you to monitor your water quality and determine when you've exceeded those nitrate levels, when you need to kick in a water change, how much you need to do to get it back to a safe zone. The other thing is you don't want to do a water change and get you just under that safe threshold, because in a couple of days you're going to exceed that. So have like your after water change level be really safe. That way you can slowly build up to the level where you need to do another one. Also, nitrates are not logarithmic like pH, so if you are doing a water change and your tank is at 40 parts per million, your tap water is at 0 parts per million, you do 25, then you're going to be down to 30. Or you do a 50, you're going to be down to 20. Or you do a 75, you'll be down to 10 parts per million. All right, so some finishing notes. I know I made a lot of jokes about ecosystem tank folks today, and mostly just because that's who most of my trolls are, but ecosystem tank people generally are actually really experienced, and they've done their research. They know how to set up a tank and keep it safe for everyone with little input. That's a really cool thing to do once you have the experience level. I enjoy it on some of my tanks at home, but I do think that for the inexperienced folks, it's not a good idea to dive right into that. And then also, a lot of people who aren't doing water changes, they're not, at least like the ones that I deal with in my business, they're not doing water changes because they aren't educated in the benefits of water changes. And so I'll see a lot of tanks where fish are constantly getting sick, so dirty you can't see in, and the tank kind of stinks a bit. It's like, what are the advantages to having this aquarium? You're not enjoying it, your fish aren't healthy. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. So I really do encourage people to get out there and do some water changes, unless you really know what you're doing and your fish are healthy. Let me know what your water change habits are. Do you do them? Do you not do them? I'd love to know. Drop a comment. Thanks for watching this video and supporting my channel. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and so I appreciate your support. Leave a comment if you enjoyed today's video, or consider subscribing to help me out. Until next time, see ya!